Um, okay, yes, and then another one. Does anybody else out here have one? No, I was going to try and
Well,
find a
I have a
particular.
question about Will Gear.
Will Gear.
And that expression he always used, the trailing arbutus or
The
arbutus?
trailing arbutus.
Arbutus.
Yeah.
And that book of photography he gave you.
Oh,
whether
you
you
do
still-
have naughty ones.
And whether you still have that book.
Oh, okay. So, well, so you would know. Yeah, Will was kind of a wild child. He always called himself the old hippie. And he felt like, and I was raised Catholic, so he felt that I wasn't getting a real proper, balanced education at home. That there were a lot of things that were missing from my youth. One of them being my exposure to beautiful bodies that were naked. And so it all follows a story of him wanting to have me play Ariel in the nude out at his Shakespeare theater. He's like, come out and play. You can run up and down the trees. It'll be great. It's earthy. It's organic. It's beautiful. And we went out once, and that story's in there too. And my first exposure to a streaker was out at Will's theater. And then later on that year, it was Christmas time, and he would always give me books. So he gave me this book of nudes, and it's the only book that he didn't sign to me. And he kind of pulled me aside and said, here, I want you to have this, but don't tell your parents. I think that you're not getting a great education at home. Which could seem a little twisted, but if you know Will and you've watched the show, you've seen him, he's just like that. He was just loved life and was so full of life that he just wanted everybody to know everything, and he was always trying to educate us on plants and life, and so yeah, that was kind of wild. And yes, I actually still have the book. Mm-hmm. And what was the other?
Oh no! Have you been aware that on one of the channels they've run a marathon of the Waltons this last month during April?
I've heard. Well, the Waltons is now on 3 stations. It's on Hallmark, the Gospel Channel, and INSP. And I recently produced a reunion special for INSP and gathered the entire cast together. And we kind of took a look back at the show, and we showed these wonderful. Have you seen it? You're not. Oh, it's really wonderful. And we all kind of sit and we reminisce about the show, and we watch some wonderful clips of Will Gear and Ellen Corby because they're the only ones who aren't with us. And it was very sad. All of us cried, but it was really nice to be able to be with each other and look back at the clips because we've never really done that before. So it was kind of fun. I was gonna, Bev, can you help me? Can you find the dinner table scene stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Please excuse my ignorance, but I've never seen the Waltons.
Wow. Thanks for being here. No, there are a lot of people who haven't.
Oh, good.
My husband. You guys, you'll have coffee later.
So when was the program on originally? And in 10 words or less, what was it about besides church and whatever?
The Waltons was during the Depression. It started in the 1930s. We did 9 seasons. So we started in 1971. I was 10 years old, and by the time I finished all of the 9 seasons and the movies of the week, I was almost 22. And it was about extended family living under the same roof with during the Depression. So it was grandparents, parents, and 7 children. And the oldest son was John Boy, who was the real life Earl Hamner. And he wrote it about his own family, and he is John Boy, and he's a writer. And it's about his memories of growing up with this family. And they didn't have a lot of material things, but they had a lot of love, and they worked things out. And the show started at a time in America during the Vietnam War in the 70s, and there was a lot of unrest. And I think people really gravitated toward the show because it was a time in America that was in upheaval, and then people really gravitated toward the family values and people uniting together to solve problems. The show also dealt with literacy and so many things that and different and embracing all different kinds of people. And so it was very for Americans. Most people tell me that they either wanted a family like the Waltons or that they grew up with a family just like the Waltons. And it means a lot to people who either didn't have that family or they did, and they shared it. And now I think the show is doing so well and is so popular again because our country is kind of in upheaval. And we're in that place where people are trying to find answers. We're trying to find, that connection. And a lot of families are having to live under the same roof again and learning how to deal with problems with each other. So that wraps it up for you.
Yeah.
Great. Did you find it?
Did you want dinner table scene?
Yeah.
Or
Yes, I
can
don't have my
see, or
glasses.
do you need some glasses?
No, I think I'm good. So, has anybody else seen the show? Did anybody? Okay. So, one of the, as much as there are ups and downs in the book, one of the things that we really wanted to put forward in it were the lessons in laughter. And this is one of my favorite parts of the book, because for those of you who've seen the show, those dinner table scenes. We always had dinner. It's wrapped around this dinner table, 11 people. So here's a little section on lessons in laughter. Oh, and I know the Trailing Arbutus is in here, which I'll explain. Almost as famous as the good nights were our dinner table scenes. From the family scrambling to their seats, saying grace, and the cold food we had to eat right after lunch. You can watch us whirling peas or some other unappetizing pile around our plates. We spent many hours at that wooden table. Every episode had at least one dinner table scene, and they were the focus of our time together on the set. We were all there every single time, all 11 of us, and there were many dinner table stories, and they still bring a smile to my face or make me laugh out loud, even now when I'm just thinking about it. I can still hear Will rambling on, often unscripted, as he had this tendency to do, when he thanked the Trailing Arbutus. We smiled, knowing that another long dinner scene had begun. Usually, the directors knew that when Will would ramble on and he'd thank this and thank that, once he got to the plants and went to the Trailing Arbutus, cut! It was time to start over. On every show I've worked on, there's always one set that is really tough. And for one reason or another, the energy drops, or the types of scenes that are played there are really demanding, or they take an especially long time to shoot. And the kitchen was ours. Specifically the dinner table scenes. If we were in the kitchen shooting a scene, it was fine. But the minute we all sat down for a meal, we knew that we were in for it. We spent so many hours at that dinner table scene, we would get punchy and a little bit slap happy. We often sat in the same places, and my spot was usually between Michael, the mom, and John Walmsley, Jason. One particular day, the energy level was really low, and to relieve the boredom, Ralph, the father, started to sing in this staccato version of, "I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy." And we all looked at him. And now, Ralph is not a singer that I know of, and he has proved it many times. But his rendition of this Eric Clapton song was so out of tune and so oddly inflected that he had us all in stitches. We all burst out laughing. But when we eventually calmed down, we suddenly had this energy that we could renew and focus on the scene, and we continued working. And for years, and to this day, it is true, Ralph cracks us up when he starts to sing this song, and he still does it every time we see him. He has a great sense of humor, and it was like perfect timing to just lighten us up so we could move on and continue working. Ralph made those long scenes easier to bear, but sometimes a little harder, for me especially. I got in trouble for getting the giggles, and from time to time, I couldn't stop. And right before a take, usually, Ralph would lean in over to Michael and whisper something to her off the wall, probably really naughty. And then he'd nudge her underneath the